Hi, welcome to Module 6 of the Employment First Toolkit for our support coordinators. My name is Sandy Kaiser. I am one of the Employment First specialists with the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So today we want to talk about the long-term job supports, and more specifically, what the support coordinators' roles and responsibilities are in relationship to monitoring and outcomes of those long-term job supports. So the core competencies of the support coordinator as identified in our Code of Federal Regulations. So specifically 42 CFR 44.196, Case Management Services. So basically what that says is that monitoring and follow-up activities, including activities and contacts that are necessary to ensure that the care plan, the ISP, is effectively implemented and adequately addresses the needs of the eligible individual, and which may be with the individual, family members, service providers, or other entities or individuals, and conducted as frequently as necessary, and including at least one annual monitoring to help determine whether the following conditions are met. So we're looking that services are being furnished in accordance to that individual's care plan, their ISP, that the services in the ISP are adequate, and that as changes in the needs or status of the eligible individual, that monitoring and follow-up activities include making necessary adjustments in the ISP and service arrangements with providers. So then looking at what are the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that support coordinators need to have in order to do their job well. So we're looking that a support coordinator can understand and explain disability-specific funding mechanisms and eligibility for federal, state, and local resources, and how to integrate with other community resources. That the support coordinator is able to understand and explain types of long-term services and supports, and the role of the providers in supporting a person throughout their lifespan. We're also looking that a support coordinator can explain the roles, expectations, rights and regulations, and responsibilities governing the relationship between the disability service providers and the persons receiving supports, and ensure that all parties understand, that there's a understanding between the parties. So the support coordinator also needs to be able to interpret information from formal and informal assessments to justify services and the supports needed to reach identified outcome. That support coordinator also needs to be able to demonstrate objectivity and discernment that facilitates unbiased provider relationships to facilitate informed choice regarding services and supports received and from whom. So the support coordinator also needs to facilitate the authorization of paid services according to our specific timeframes, and they need to ensure that the availability of service provision through the completion of authorization process according to timeframes. So in other words, making sure that they're getting the paperwork done and dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's within specific timeframes. So continuing on with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes, support coordinators have to monitor progress towards personal outcomes and a person's quality of life in all domains. The quality of the service, environmental settings, through regular observations, conversations, documentation review, and formal monitoring practices. The support coordinator needs to be able to identify, communicate, document, and respond appropriately to issues found during monitoring and or reported by the individual or team members. So also very important is recognizing the signs of abuse and neglect and or exploitation and reporting these incidents according to our regulations and procedures and completing appropriate actions to ensure the immediate safety of the individual. Also identifying serious events and completing appropriate follow-up action, accurately and thoroughly completing all documentation to include, but not limited to, eligibility, monitoring, and resolution of identified issues or anything else. So now let's take a look at the benefits of long-term job supports. So there are many benefits to getting that long-term support. Having that long-term support in place can assist with training or retraining job tasks, can monitor that socialization and overall integration. So one of the things that we want to achieve with competitive integrated employment is that individuals with disabilities are being embraced in that workplace culture just like any other employee. So long-term supports can make sure that that is taking place. Promoting communication with the employer and the employee, helping to facilitate natural supports, addressing schedule and personnel changes, facilitating career pathways, assessing job satisfaction, assessing that employer satisfaction, helping with managing life changes that affect work performance, engaging and educating employers on retaining workers with disabilities, maintaining that balance between work and needed benefits such as Social Security or Medicaid, and facilitating accommodations and assistive technology needs. These are all the benefits of receiving those long-term job supports. So, what are the desired outcomes? One, we want to see that individuals are collaborating with employment specialists and employers to identify what reasonable workplace accommodations they might need, including the use of assistive technology. We want to make sure that individuals are able to collaborate with their employment specialists and their employers to implement those needed accommodations. We also want to make sure that individuals participate in those workplace customs, those social activities, that culture. Making sure that individuals develop friendships and mentoring relationships with coworkers and supervisors. We also want to make sure that coworkers and supervisors develop workplace strategies to support and train the individual. This person is an employee just like everybody else and deserves the same supports that other employees have access to. We also want to ensure that complex tasks become easier for an individual to accomplish through using task analysis and breaking down that task into smaller steps and training. So employment retention. What does that mean? What is being done when we have those long-term job supports? What we're talking about is setting up ongoing employment supports and monitoring the employment relationship to ensure satisfaction both of the individual and their employer. We want to make sure it's a good job fit and that it's working for both. We want to be able to assist the job seeker in reporting those benefits and helping them identify who can help in monitoring the impact of that employment income on those benefits. So again, when we talk about benefits, we're talking about Social Security, Medicaid, it could also be food stamps or Section 8 housing. Maintaining close contact with both the employee and the employer during employment job training to resolve problems and continue to evaluate performance, work behavior, and production. So making sure that we're staying on top of any potential barriers and that we're addressing them timely. Prepare and maintaining employment records. Negotiate as needed with employer regarding those tasks, optimizing individual initiative, additional responsibilities, promotion and career advancement, increased wages, and support provided after the job starts. We're also looking at support problem resolution processes by consulting with the employer and the employee while respecting the business culture and organizational processes, policies, and procedures. So this is what we expect of the employment specialist, that they're doing this. So when we talk about employment specialists, what their duties are, hopefully they've had an opportunity to go and work in that environment that the individual will now work, so that they can see what a normal duty day looks like. So, and to be able to complete that job duty and task analysis if needed. So, identifying the areas in which various job tasks are performed, determining the essential and non-essential job functions, establishing a work routine, identifying those natural supports and natural cues in the workplace, and designing appropriate training and support strategies. So that can all be developed using that job analysis. So outside of that job analysis, an employment specialist can modify training according to changes in the individual's work life situations, fade their presence away from the work area, and foster those independence. So support coordinator duties regarding service providers. Support coordinators need to be able to ensure that service providers are meeting the individual's needs, that new employee, what are their needs? And is the employment specialist adequately supporting that person in their needs? Following up with those service providers and that individual regularly to keep an eye on things and address things as they come up. Facilitating timely payment to those service providers. So, and again, as things change and the support coordinator may need to amend the ISP or go in and amend how many units are authorized, making sure that that paperwork is completed in a timely fashion so that the service provider is not having to experience a delay in getting paid for their supports. Documenting progress and individual satisfaction, and reporting abuses, exploitations, and neglect. So now we want to go on to factors that can affect job supports. So things that happen, and they happen in all of our lives. So this is not just disability specific. This happens to all of us. So things change in our own needs and preferences, expanding job duties or changing job duties, new supervisors or coworkers. When coworkers leave or retire, especially if they were a mentor to us. Changes in our work environment, which could be more physical, new equipment, change in layout of the workplace, changes in our own personal life, so things that happen internally to us, negative attitudes of coworkers. These are all things that can support how well our job supports are working for us or indicate that we might need a change in job supports. So now let's talk about monitoring the job supports. As a support coordinator, your duty is to ensure that service providers are fulfilling their obligations to the individual. In the case of the employment specialist, so you want to make sure that natural supports are being facilitated, that the employment specialist is looking for natural supports and trying to cultivate them. You want to make sure that there is a plan for fading and that plan is taking place. So how do we know when that employment specialist is going to be able to reduce their support? What criteria are we looking at, and what are we doing to make sure that that's happening? And is that plan being followed? So we want to make sure that the professional supports are unobtrusive as possible. We don't want the person to stand out. We want them to kind of go unnoticed as far as those extra supports. So we want to make sure that that's what's happening, that the supports being provided aren't catching the eye of everyone, that everybody notices, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. We want to make sure that it's, again, this person looks no different than any other coworker. So we want to ensure that the individual participates in typical supports available to all, that they're participating in the orientation and training that is available to all employees, that they're being able to be mentored by their coworkers and others at the place, that they're getting the supervision they need from their supervisor, and that they're able to participate in those workplace social activities. And sometimes social activities occur after work, and you can always tell the individuals that are embraced by their coworkers because they know of those social activities. They know when they're occurring. Well, is this employee getting invited to those social activities? We want to make sure that support aids like task lists, assistive technology, accommodations are being explored and utilized. We want to follow up with the job seeker and the employment specialist on a regular basis just to stay on top of any issues that come up. Things change. And by keeping in regular contact, we're going to know when those things change and be able to address them in a timely fashion. So monitoring job supports is a continuous cycle. It just all keeps going. So the support coordinator is going to be following up with the employment specialist on the person's progress. They're also going to be following up with the person. How satisfied are they with the supports? Are the supports still meeting their needs? They're going to be assessing information from a variety of resources, going and observing, talking, just asking questions. It could even be doing some formal assessments. They're going to be working with the individual and their trusted persons to make the needed adjustments to the plan. So things change. And as things change, we need to adjust. We need to amend that ISP to adjust for those additional supports or less supports needed. They're going to be working with the individual, the trusted persons, and the service provider to ensure that that plan is implemented so that, again, when we've identified a change, is it happening? Is it being acted upon? And then finally, here is a list of resources where if you're interested in finding more information or getting more assistance, you can check out one of these resources. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you learned something.